Mr. Speaker, we're decisively turning the page on a failed economic model of low investment, and we're backing the talent and prospects of the whole country. And over coming weeks, we'll set out plans for further investment and renewal. Mr. Speaker, our strategic defence review shows this government will never gamble with our national security. Through the biggest sustained increase since the Cold War, we will transform our defence, strengthen our nation and invest in jobs and industry across the United Kingdom. Mr. Speaker, this morning I had meetings with ministerial colleagues and others. In addition to my duties in this House, I shall have further such meetings later today.
Mr. Speaker, we all remember the glorious summer in 2012 when the world's greatest athletes came to London to compete in the Olympics and the Paralympics. It showcased Britain at its best, not just in track and field, but also as a country that can host major cultural and sporting events. Yeah. My right honourable friend has been written to by over 200 of our top athletes. Some of them are members of Cambridge Harriers that meets in my constituency, and they're calling for the government to support the bid for the 2029 World Athletics Championships to take place in London. If successful, it will lift the whole nation. If successful, it will lift the whole nation. It will inspire a generation of new athletes. It will showcase Britain on a world stage, put £400 million into our economy. What's not to like?
I think the race has finished. Go on, Prime Minister.
I thank my honourable friend. One of the greatest achievements of the last Labour government was that 2012 Olympics in London, and we all remember it. Can I pay tribute, given the response, can I pay tribute to the extraordinary contribution of Tessa Jowell to that Games? Agree there have been huge economic benefits of hosting major sporting events, as well as an important legacy.
We come to the Leader of the Opposition, Kemibero.
Mr. Speaker, 3 weeks ago, the winter fuel policy was set in stone. 2 weeks ago, the Prime Minister U-turned. Today, the Chancellor is rushing her plans because she just realised when winter is. So, on behalf of the pensioners who want to know, can the Prime Minister be clear with us here and now? How many of the 10 million people who lost their winter fuel payments will get it back?
Prime Minister.
Well, I'm glad to see she's catching up with what happened 2 weeks ago. Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, at the budget, we took the right decision to stabilise the economy because of the £22 billion black hole that they left. And the signs, we took the right decisions. The growth figures are up, the interest rates have been cut, and we got 3 trade deals. So we will look again, as I said 2 weeks ago, at the eligibility for winter fuel, and of course we'll set out how we pay for it. But because we've stabilised the economy, Mr. Speaker, we on this side are committed to the triple lock, and that increased pensions by over £400 this April. On their side, they say the triple lock is unsustainable, and I think her position is she wants to means test it.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister clearly has selective amnesia. I asked him 3 questions about the winter fuel payments 2 weeks ago, and he was floundering. The fact is, he hasn't answered the question I asked him. He hasn't answered the question I asked him. He can't tell us who will get the payments. All we see is U-turn after U-turn. His head must be spinning. Will he apologise now for taking the payments away in the first place, including to his own backbenchers? And can he tell us how he's going to pay for this?
Well, Mr. Speaker, we took the right decisions at the budget because we needed to stabilise the economy. She needs to apologise for the fact that they left the economy in a terrible state. We had a mini-budget which blew up the economy, and we were left with a £22 billion black hole. When she gets up, perhaps she should apologise for that.
Mr. Speaker, the OBR has said there was no such black hole. He's just given away £30 billion for the Chagos Island. That's his black hole. He hasn't stabilised the economy. Borrowing prices are higher now than any time in the last Parliament. He has not stabilised the economy. He has no clear answers on what he's doing. It's just chaos, chaos, chaos. He keeps making announcements with no detail. So let's move to another area of confusion. Can we get a simple answer? Will the government keep the 2-child benefit cap?
Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I'm absolutely determined that we will drive down child poverty. That's one of the proudest things of the last Labour government. That's why we've got a task force. That's why we've got a strategy, and we'll set out that strategy in due course. But we drive child poverty down. Under them, poverty always goes up.
I didn't ask him about a task force. I asked him if he will keep the two-child benefit cap, and he doesn't know. It's just chaos and uncertainty. He has no details. He is briefing something and causing a lot of confusion to the people out there. But on that two-child benefit cap, Mr. Speaker, I'll tell him this. I believe in family, but I also believe in fairness. Yes. On this side of the House, we believe that people on benefits should have to make the same choices on having children as everyone else. Yes. What does the Prime Minister believe?
Mr. Speaker, I believe profoundly in driving down poverty and child poverty. That's why we'll put a strategy in place. But she talks about head spinning. There's only one leader, Mr. Speaker, who's been praised this week by the Russian embassy. And if she carries on echoing Kremlin talking points like this, Reform are going to be sending her an application form for membership.
Mr. Speaker, I asked the Prime Minister what he believes in. He had to look in his folder to find the answer. His MPs behind him know what they believe in. He doesn't know. Mr. Speaker, he has been in government for nearly a year. It's only going to get harder. Yes. He's been in government only a year. It's only going to get harder and harder. The canned forced laughter, the planted questions, all of this is going to disappear because at every single point, things are getting worse. He has to ask Morgan McSweeney what it is that he believes in. But the fact is the chaos is being felt in the economy. The Chancellor said she would not be coming back with new tax rises, but she will have to pay for all of these U-turns which she's announcing out there, isn't she?
Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I'm going to look in my folder because here I've got the quote that she had on Sky News. I will read it, thank you. It's what the Leader of the Opposition says. It's worth listening to. What she said was this. Sky News, Mr. Speaker, Israel is fighting a proxy war on behalf of the United Kingdom, just like Ukraine is on behalf of Western Europe against Russia. Well, that was certainly noticed in the Russian embassy because they put out a statement saying the Leader of the Opposition has finally called a spade a spade. Ukraine is indeed fighting a proxy war against Russia on behalf of Western interests. And they went on to say the illegitimate Kyiv regime, created, financed and armed by the West, has been at it since 2014. So they endorsed, they want the detail. I've given the quote. That's what Russia said in response. She asked me what I believe in. I believe in standing by Ukraine and calling out Russia as the aggressor.
Mr. Speaker, it was our government that stood behind Ukraine and led the way in Europe. Everything he has said this afternoon is total nonsense. Obfuscation, avoiding the question. He doesn't have any answers. It's disgraceful. I asked him, Mr. Speaker, about the two-child benefit cap. He's talking about the Kremlin. He's saying everything he can to distract from the mess he is making of our economy. The OECD has downgraded growth for the next 2 years. He can't rule out tax rises. The police chiefs are saying they don't have the money they need to keep the public safe. Just as he's releasing more criminals onto the streets. His cabinet are squabbling with each other. They've said that they've lost control of the borders, but he still managed, Mr. Speaker, to find £30 billion to give away the Chagos Islands. This is total and utter chaos. 2 weeks ago, he was crowing about his historic trade deal and how he got 0% tariffs on steel. Now the steel industry will face 25% tariffs unless he does exactly what President Trump tells him to. It is chaos, chaos, chaos. And isn't the root of the chaos, Mr. Speaker, that it is about this Prime Minister, his decisions and his judgment?
The only advice, Mr. Speaker, she gets up on a Wednesday morning, scrolls through social media, never does any of it. We're the only country in the world that isn't paying the 50% tax on steel. And we're working in the US, and that will be coming down. We are working on it to bring it down to zero. That is going to happen.
Order. Please. Let's listen to the answer, even if you don't believe you're getting one. It is how the Prime Minister wishes to.
What did she opposes the US deal, she opposes the India deal, she opposes what we're doing with the EU, and she opposes Diego Garcia. That's a vital intelligence and strategic capability. Absolutely clear that legal uncertainty would compromise that capability in a very short time. No responsible Prime Minister would ever let that happen. We have secured the long-term basis for the base. That has been welcomed by Mr. Speaker, welcomed by the US, NATO, Australia, New Zealand, India. They're our allies. It's been opposed by our adversaries, Russia, China and Iran. And into that column we have reform, presumably following Putin, and the Tories following reform.
Claire Hammer.
Anyone who saw the 6-year-old girl fleeing the flaming shelter where her family were killed by an Israeli airstrike will carry those horrific images with them forever. These are very dark days, and Gaza is a stain on the soul of humanity, and it is a further shame that there is more moral clarity coming from Ms. Rachel on YouTube than there is from many world leaders who are complicit in silence. The Prime Minister said this week that Britain must be ready for war, and I ask, after tens of thousands of deaths, after a generation of Gazans stunted by hunger and trauma, when will it be ready for peace? When will it help to stop this genocide? When will it hold the Israeli government to account? And when will it recognise the State of Palestine?
Well, Mr. Speaker, I'm grateful to her for raising this, and she's absolutely right to describe this as dark days. And Israel's recent action is appalling and, in my view, counterproductive and intolerable. And we have strongly opposed the expansion of military operations and settler violence and the blocking of humanitarian aid. Mr. Speaker, you will have seen we've suspended the FTA talks and sanctioned extremists supporting violence in the West Bank. We will keep looking at further action along with our allies, including sanctions. But let me be absolutely clear. We need to get back to a ceasefire. We need the hostages who've been held for a very long time to be released. And we desperately need more aid at speed and at volume into Gaza, because it's an appalling and intolerable situation.
Leader of the Liberal Democrats, Sir Ed Davey.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Can I start by welcoming reports that the Chancellor will give winter fuel payments to more pensioners this winter? Though, because we still wait the details, we will reserve our full judgment. But, Mr. Speaker, can I recognise the efforts of the Prime Minister to pull out all the stops to avoid President Trump's damaging tariffs? A letter from the King offering to water down online safety laws, even trying to send the Open to one of Trump's golf courses. The Prime Minister thought he'd secured 0% tariffs for British steel, but now Trump is threatening us with 50% unless we comply with his new 5-week deadline. Mr. Speaker, this is classic Trump, changing the terms of a deal he had already agreed. Does the Prime Minister share my fear that nothing will stop Trump messing the UK around, short of bunging a few £100 million into his Trump coin?
Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we have a deal and we're implementing it, and within a very short time I'm very confident we will get those tariffs down in accordance with the deal. And I'll come back to him and update the House in due course, and I think the House will be very pleased at the outcome of that. But because of the approach... No, wait. This is zero tariffs on steel. And he says, no, they wouldn't. Well, let's come back to this in just a couple of weeks when we've implemented it. But they obviously don't want this. We back steel, Mr. Speaker, on this side of the House. They laugh at attempts to back steel on their side of the House, and that's a big part of the problem.
Sir Ed Davey.
Well, Mr. Speaker, I had hoped the Prime Minister would be now beginning to see the sort of man that Trump is and start getting tough on him. So we will come back to this issue. But moving on, Mr. Speaker, I welcome the remarks of the Prime Minister on Gaza, because I'm sure all of us are appalled by the latest scenes, starving people desperate for food, water and medicine met with chaos and violence. The US-Israeli programme is clearly failing, and nothing short of lifting the full blockade on aid will do. But given the Netanyahu government refuses to do that, will the Prime Minister take more decisive action today? Will he push at the United Nations Security Council for humanitarian corridors to get the desperately needed aid urgently into Gaza?
Minister.
Can I give him my assurance, because this is a very important issue, that we are working at pace with our allies on that very issue to take whatever measures we can to get that humanitarian aid in. We've been doing that intensively over recent weeks, and I can give him my assurance we'll continue to do that, because that aid needs to get in at speed and at volume, and he's absolutely right about that.
Ruth Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's been over 2 decades since the Labour government banned the cruel practice of fur farming. But the job is not done. Real fur and fur products are still being imported into the UK. This week, I delivered a petition to Number 10 with over 1 million signatures calling for a fur-free Britain. My private member's bill would do exactly that. So does my right honourable friend agree it's time to close the loopholes, ban the import and sale of real fur, and finally put the fur trade out of fashion?
Prime Minister.
Can I thank her for her campaign? I know the Environment Minister will have heard her representations. We have commissioned the Expert Animal Welfare Committee to produce a full report on responsible sourcing of fur to inform the next steps that need to be taken, and we're committed to publishing an animal welfare strategy later this week.
Rachel Gilmore.
Mr. Speaker, my constituent Molly is a single mother caring for a child with cancer. She cannot work because of her caring responsibilities. Since January, she has tried to claim disability living allowance and universal credit, but faced constant DWP bureaucracy. This bureaucracy is continuing right up to yesterday, when she received yet another frustrating letter from the DWP about her DLA. Will the Prime Minister assure Molly and others like her that his government is doing all that it can to help, and visit Tiverton and Minehead to see these challenges firsthand and work with me to find a solution?
Prime Minister.
Well, I can thank her for raising this case, and I'm deeply sorry to hear about Molly's situation. We are improving the lives of those that need it, but what I'll do, with her permission, the Secretary of State, the DWP, has just said to me, I'll look into the case. So if she could provide the details, I'll make sure that it gets proper attention and that we can deal with the particular problem she's raised. And I'm grateful to her, and I'm sure Molly is, for raising it. And I hope now we can take the action that's necessary.
Alex Burrows.
Mr. Speaker, in Wales, we will never forget how our steel industry was neglected by the Conservative government. They made unfunded promises, they refused to make critical decisions, and they left Port Talbot on a cliff edge. So can I welcome the news overnight that this Labour government has secured an exemption for our steel industry from the latest US tariffs, a deal secured by this Labour Prime Minister? Can I ask the Prime Minister if he will take this opportunity to update the House on what further work he is doing in order to support our steelworkers across Wales and across our United Kingdom?
Prime Minister.
He's doing great work with the Welsh Labour colleagues to champion working people in Wales. Mr. Speaker, the United Kingdom is the only country in the world which won't be subject to the additional tariffs announced today, the only country in the world, and we are working with the US at this moment to swiftly implement the agreement that we've reached, which will see the 25% tariffs removed. We want that, they don't want that, and that's crucial. That is crucial for British jobs. We fought tooth and nail for our steel industry, saving jobs at British Steel and improving the deal at Port Talbot, and we'll continue to do so.
Brendan O'Hara.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Prime Minister has repeatedly told this House that it is not for him or his government to determine what is and what is not a genocide. But that position is no longer tenable, because at the High Court recently, the Prime Minister instructed his lawyers to argue that in Gaza, and I quote, no genocide has occurred or is occurring. So the truth is, his government has made a determination. The question is, does he have the courage of his convictions, and will he repeat from that dispatch box what he told his lawyers to argue in the High Court? that he believes that no genocide has occurred or is occurring in Gaza?
Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I've said that we are strongly opposed and appalled by Israel's recent actions. I've been absolutely clear in condemning them and calling them out, whether that's the expansion of military operations, settler violence, or the dreadful blocking of aid. It's completely unacceptable. We must see a ceasefire, hostages must be released, and there must be aid into Gaza. But he talks about peace and security, Mr. Speaker. Compare their party, as I understand it, at this moment of global instability, as we go into a new era. What do they want to do? They want to get rid of the nuclear deterrent, the single most important capability that we have to keep the UK safe, harming the industry and harming the country.
Rem Downey.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Carnegie UK was established by Dunfermline-born philanthropist Andrew Carnegie, and they found that people under 49 are twice as likely to have been negatively impacted by the rising cost of living compared to those over 65s. Mr. Speaker, it's vital we increase opportunities for younger people and help put more money in their pocket. But sadly this week we saw the Scottish Government seek to close off an opportunity for young people by refusing to support new skills investment from Rolls-Royce, while the college sector in Scotland also warns of a funding crisis. Can I ask the Prime Minister what more he is doing to make sure young people in Scotland get the opportunities they deserve despite a failing and stagnant SNP Scottish Government?
Well, I thank him for raising this. At a time of global conflict, it is staggering that the SNP policy is to block an £11 million investment for a new national welding centre on the Clyde. To block it. I was there, Mr. Speaker, earlier this week. I saw the huge potential for apprenticeships, for job opportunities and for young people. I support it. They block it. In England, Mr. Speaker, we're backing 120,000 more apprentices and £3 billion of funding as part of our plan for change. And despite the highest funding settlement in the history of devolution, they're cutting college budgets, they're blocking opportunities, they have no plan for Scotland's future.
Sir Poachin.
Given the Prime Minister's desire to strengthen strategic alignment with our European neighbours, will he, in the interests of public safety, follow the lead of France, Denmark, Belgium and others and ban the burqa?
Prime Minister.
Can I welcome her to her place? But I'm not going to follow her down that line. But now she is here and safely in her place, perhaps she could tell her new party leader that his latest plan to bet £80 billion of unfunded tax cuts, with no idea how he's going to pay for it, is Liz Truss all over again. Although, considering I think she was a Conservative member when Liz Truss was leader, she probably won't.
Dr. Scott Arthur.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. During recess, I visited Scottish Action for Mental Health's Red Hall Walled Garden, which I'm proud to say is in Edinburgh South West. It has operated for decades as a therapeutic horticultural centre supporting adults with mental health problems. Like similar community mental health services across Scotland, it is now under threat. It faces potential closure due to chronic underfunding of IGBs by the SNP government. Does the Prime Minister agree that facilities like Red Hall Walled Garden should have been a priority for the SNP when deciding how to spend the record funding settlement Scottish Labour MPs won for Scotland?
Prime Minister.
What my honourable friend describes is how health services in Scotland are utterly broken under the SNP. From people waiting too long for mental health support in his constituency to the Wishaw neonatal unit in Hamilton, which the SNP are threatening to downgrade. In 2021, the SNP said they recruit 1,000 more community mental health workers. They utterly failed to do so. If the SNP had a plan to fix Scotland's NHS, they'd have done it by now. Scotland needs a change of direction.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Sir John Cunliffe's interim report published yesterday laid out the fundamental changes that are needed for our water sector. This is felt no more acutely than in my constituency of Chichester. We have a harbour that's in an unfavourable declining condition and sewage is blighting our tourism industry. But with water bills from Southern Water rising by 47% for my constituents, can the Prime Minister tell them when they can expect to see the real change that this government promised and our waterways cleaned up for good?
Well, can I share share her anger and frustration at the broken water system that we inherited, with frankly appalling sewage, higher bills and executives paying themselves huge bonuses. And the era of being rewarded for failure is over. We've launched a record 81 criminal investigations into law-breaking water companies in England, introduced the Water Act with prison sentences for polluting bosses and banning unfair bonuses, and will respond to the Independent Water Commission in full following the publication of the final report.
David Taylor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The proposed Hemel Health Campus, a partnership between the NHS and the Council, presents a perfect opportunity to deliver on Labour's commitment to neighbourhood-based care, bringing services closer to where people live, in facilities designed around their needs. It can also help to regenerate our town centre. Does the Prime Minister agree with me that it is essential that all stakeholders involved in the project are as ambitious as possible and work to deliver a community hospital that builds on the services currently available and reflects the evolving needs of our town?
Prime Minister.
Well, can I pay tribute to how he's bringing people together to deliver better care in the community that meets the needs of his constituents. The proposals for the health campus will be open to public consultation. I'd urge the whole community to input into that to ensure the strongest investment case is put forward. I'm pleased that waiting lists in his local trust have fallen by a fifth since March 24 because of the investment that we've put into the NHS, which of course was opposed by the parties opposite.
I'm going to put together.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Over the past few months, I've been meeting with care providers in my constituency of Stratford-on-Avon who deliver essential and expert care to some of my most vulnerable constituents. But like so many small businesses, they're under huge financial pressures, and the hike in national insurance is yet another burden many can't afford. I welcome the government party U-turn on winter fuel payment cuts following pressure from these Liberal Democrat benches. So when will the Prime Minister offer relief to care providers and other small businesses and U-turn on the punitive hike to national insurance?
Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we announced £502 million to support local authorities to manage the changes in NICs. We put £3.7 billion in additional funding for social care, doubled the Disabilities Facilities Grant, and introducing the first ever fair pay agreement for professional carers, including minimum standards for pay. But I would just gently say to her, her party opposed the budget which provides the money for the funding. You can't keep asking for more spending and oppose a budget which raises the money.
Natalie Fleet.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The first constituent to reach out to me was a brave bowls-over mummy who had waited 4 years, 5 months from rape to prosecution, with 3 postponements and multiple suicide attempts. I will do everything I can to use this chamber to speak out for women that are being so badly let down. How will the Prime Minister support me to make sure that when these survivors, these formidable women across the country come forward, they will get justice and there will be space in our prisons for their perpetrators?
Prime Minister.
Can I thank her for raising this case so powerfully and everything that she's doing on it? The case she's outlined is utterly shameful, and for far too many victims are waiting too long for justice. Mr. Speaker, we're delivering a record number of sitting days, reviewing criminal courts to speed up the hearing of these cases and have as a mission to halve violence against women and girls. She talks about the prison system. The party opposite left the prison system on the brink of collapse, routinely operating at 99% capacity because in 14 long years they only added just 500 extra places. We will deliver 14,000 new prison places so the public are protected from these vile offenders.
Lincoln Job.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Prime Minister told us during the general election that he is a socialist. What's been more surprising is to find out in the last couple of weeks that the leader of the Reform Party might be one too. As the Chancellor puts the spending review and locks it down. Will the Prime Minister please remind her of Mrs Thatcher's all too pertinent observation that the trouble is with socialism is that eventually you run out of other people's money to spend?
Was it Kwasi Kwarteng that he replaced? And now he stands there to give lectures on economic prudence. You couldn't script it. But, Mr. Speaker, the difference between the Labour government and the parties opposite in reform is we believe in properly costing our plans. They've got £80 billion worth of unfunded commitments. Liz Truss 2.0.
Chris Webb.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Blackpool's own boxing champion Brian Rose uses his gym to tackle knife crime, antisocial behaviour and give young people a safe space, demonstrating the significant impact of amateur gyms. Thousands of these amateur gyms up and down the country operate on a shoestring and can't afford to keep the lights on, relying on brilliant charities like Maverick All-Stars, Empire's Fighting Chance and Matchroom in the Community. Would the Prime Minister join me in thanking these charities, praising the volunteers in these gyms, and will he throw a haymaker behind these gyms, giving them the knockout support they need to continue their vital work?
Well, can I thank him? He's a great champion for how amateur boxing gyms can transform both physical and mental health and confidence in young people. And the time, I have to say, given by selfless volunteers is inspiring, and we should thank them for it. England Boxing are investing £9 million in the sport, and GB Boxing will also receive more than £12 million during the next Olympic Games cycle. And I know my honourable friend will be looking forward to Liverpool hosting the inaugural World Boxing Championship, I think, in September.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Since July, health services in my constituency have got worse. The Chase Hospital may close, in Borden the promised health hub has not arrived, and in Haslemere this week we've learnt that inpatient wards are being closed because of a lack of GP cover. The Prime Minister promised hundreds of more GPs. Could he possibly send one or two of them to Farnham and Borden?
Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, I remind myself they left the NHS on its knees. The last Labour government brought the waiting list down to record lows. They drove them up to record highs. The last Labour government had the highest possible confidence in the NHS. They dragged it down to the lowest ever levels. Because of the money that we're putting in, we've done 3 million extra appointments in the first year of a Labour government. That's the difference Labour makes in power.
David Pinto-Chichinsky.
Mr. Speaker, the Environment Agency predicts that 8 million homes, that's 1 in 4 in England, could be at risk of flooding by 2050. But despite this, the party opposite presided over a tripling of the proportion of our flood defences deemed not adequate. By contrast, this Labour government is investing over £2.6 billion in new flood defences, including in the Greenway in my Hendon constituency. Does the Prime Minister agree with me that it's a shame that not all parties share this government's determination to keep homes safe from flooding?
Prime Minister. I thank you for highlighting this, because the party opposite left our flood defences in the worst state on record. It's prisons, it's NHS, it's the economy, it's flooding. Every single thing they touched, they broke. We're investing £2.65 million to build and maintain flood defences, and that means 52,000 more properties will be protected by March of next year.
Mr. Speaker, Glastonbury is experiencing a notable increase in antisocial behaviour. St John's Church was recently forced to close its doors after gravestones were reportedly used as counters for drug transactions. Constituents Peter and Melanie told me that people have been targeted when collecting their pensions with demands for money, leaving them feeling scared and overwhelmed. The lawlessness is deterring tourists, and business owners have told me trade is suffering. As visitors start to arrive ahead of the Glastonbury Festival, could the Prime Minister reassure my constituents that he will give the police the additional resource that they need to tackle this threatening and menacing behaviour to reduce the devastating crime wave sweeping through the town?
Well, she's absolutely right to raise this, and antisocial behaviour massively impacts on individuals and their communities, and that's why we're introducing 13,000 new neighbourhood police and giving them better powers, respect orders, so they can actually deal with what they see on the streets effectively. It's very important that we take this seriously.
David Burton-Sampson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This time last year, Southend United Football Club almost went bankrupt thanks to the mismanagement by the former owner. But on Sunday, they made it to Wembley for the National League playoff finals. And despite being beaten by Oldham Athletic in the 11th hour, it was like the phoenix rising from the flames to see them on the pitch. So will the Prime Minister join me in congratulating Southend United on their outstanding recovery and give me an assurance that the government's doing all they can to make sure that no club ever has to go through what our club went through?
Let me congratulate Southend on what was an incredible achievement. Commiserations for the final result. One of the police officers on my team, Mr. Speaker, is an ardent Southend supporter, so I know all about the team and the plans and the stadium and what it means. But I should also congratulate Oldham, of course, for that victory as well. Thank you.
Right, final question, Sir David Davis.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In 1999, the Prime Minister produced a book on miscarriage of justice, recommending ways of preventing them or quickly putting them right. But in 2014, people who had been wrongly imprisoned and then exonerated were only allowed compensation if they could prove their innocence beyond reasonable doubt. This ignored the decision of the court exonerating them and actually meant that 93% of people who had been wrongfully imprisoned, often had their lives destroyed, got no compensation whatsoever. This is an institutional miscarriage of justice. Will he instruct the Department of Justice to review this matter and pay personal attention to actually getting this travesty of justice resolved?
Prime Minister.
Well, he raises a really important issue that I'm obviously aware of. It is right that victims of miscarriage can apply for compensation and appropriately do so, and I'll take away what he says and have it looked at.
Right, with that completes Prime Minister's questions. Let the front bench change over. Point of order. Can the honourable gentleman find a seat, please? Can't just stand there and just have a conversation. Point of order, Jesse Norman.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, this House and indeed the viewing public have just been treated to the very unfortunate spectacle of a Prime Minister who is completely unwilling to answer questions from the Leader of the Opposition. So much so that he entirely changed the subject and started, instead of referring to the child benefit cap, started referring to the Kremlin and Russia. I know that you, Mr. Speaker, pay careful attention to the content of supplementary questions to make sure that they are within scope. Could you give us some guidance as to whether you may be able to control answers when they are wildly inappropriate?
Can I just say, as somebody who knows quite rightly how this House runs, also knows that I have no responsibility for the answers that are given by ministers. What I would say is put his point on the record, but I've been in this House since 1997, and I can honestly say, and we both can honestly say, the scope has always been that we've always questioned the answers whoever has been at that dispatch box. So nothing has quite changed, but the point is on the record. Right. Let us now move to the first of the statements. We call on the Secretary of the Treasury, Darren Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. With your permission, I would like to update the House on the government's work to boost growth across the United Kingdom. As the Prime Minister set out in the Plan for Change, economic growth is the #1 mission of this government. It is key to delivering on the government's goals: higher wages for working people, delivering economic and national security, and investing in our public services. Mr. Speaker, we are already making progress. The most recent figures showed that the United Kingdom was the fastest growing economy of any G7 country in the first quarter of the year, and that real wages have risen more since July 2024 than over the first 10 years of the previous Conservative government. But we are keenly aware, Mr. Speaker, that this progress must be widely felt in every part of the country. As such, our plans for regional growth will be hardwired into the spending review and infrastructure strategy, which will be set out in more detail in the coming weeks. This investment will be targeted squarely at the renewal of Britain and fixed on the priorities of working people, delivering on the promise of change, improving lives and communities across the country. This morning, the Chancellor set out her next steps for nationwide growth in a series of speeches across the North and the Midlands, and I am pleased to update the House on those announcements now. A key part of the government's growth mission is the view that growth relies on dynamic, interconnected city regions, creating clusters of activity where people can get around, communicate, share ideas, commute, find good work, and earn wages that flow back into strong local economies. As most members know, the majority of our city regions have poor public transport systems, holding back growth and improvements to air quality and making it harder to get around. Stronger transport links are therefore crucial. They create opportunities for individuals to access a wider pool of jobs, for employers to access a wider labour market, and for businesses to expand the market for their goods and services. If we were to increase the productivity of our largest city regions outside London just to match the national average, this would grow the economy by £86 billion. So, Mr. Speaker, I am pleased to say that this government is making the biggest investment in intra-city transport connectivity that this country has ever seen. The spending review will allocate funding for ambitious local transport programmes across England, including the new Transport for City Regions Fund launched by the government today. This will give 9 city region mayors a share of £15.6 billion in long-term transport for city region settlements running until 2032. The benefits and opportunities will be felt in the cities and towns across these combined authorities and by those who commute to work from outside those city regions. The previous government said they would do some of this, but as is always the case, they never put the money aside to pay for it. As a result of our reforms to the fiscal rules and decision to increase investment at Autumn Budget 2024, this Labour government is delivering. Mr. Speaker, the funding announced today will mean that the Mayor of West Yorkshire can now fully commit to delivering the West Yorkshire Mass Transit System, which will be fully integrated with cycling, walking, bus and rail, making journeys quicker, more accessible and more reliable across the region. The Mayor of the West Midlands can extend the metro from Birmingham city centre to the new Sports Quarter, unlocking more than £3 billion of private investment, bringing benefits and opportunities to those living in the constituency of my right honourable friend, the member for Birmingham Ladywood, and all those that travel there. It will mean that the Mayor of Greater Manchester can grow and transform the Metrolink tram network, building new tram stops in Bury, Manchester and Oldham, which will help drive up living standards for the constituents of my honourable friends, the members for Bury North and South, and Oldham East and Saddleworth, and for others in the North West region. The Mayor of the Liverpool City region can deliver 3 new rapid bus routes, linking up the city centre, John Lennon Airport, the new Everton Stadium on Bramley Moor Dock, and new homes built on the Central Docks redevelopment and Anfield. And the Mayor of the North East will now be able to extend the Tyne Wear Metro, linking Washington with Newcastle and Sunderland, connecting those living in my honourable friend, the member for Washington and Gateshead South constituency, to new jobs and opportunities. And Mr. Speaker, if I may, can I pay particular tribute to the honourable member for Washington and Gateshead South, who has campaigned for this project for years and years, now being delivered by a Labour government. This investment will also mean, Mr. Speaker, that the Mayor for South Yorkshire can renew the existing and now publicly owned Supertram network with track replacements, overhead line maintenance, rolling stock renewal, and yielding a fleet of new vehicles by 2032, linking jobs and homes in Sheffield and the constituency of my honourable friend, the member for Rotherham. We are backing the Mayor of West of England's plans for mass transit development across the region, with improved rail infrastructure to help unlock more services between Brabazon and Bristol city centre, meaning shorter journey times to Bristol Temple Meads across the wider area, and providing greater opportunities for those in my honourable friend, the member for Filton and Bradley Stokes constituency, and in declaring my own interest, Mr. Speaker, in my own. And after years, Mr. Speaker, and after years of the Mayor of Tees Valley trying to persuade his Conservative colleagues to fund these important projects, I'm delighted to confirm today that this Labour government is now backing the region to invest in, for example, the Middlesbrough station in my honourable friend, the member for Middlesbrough and Thornbury East constituency, unblocking local networks and increasing capacity on local lines. And can I pay particular thanks to my honourable friends, the members in the Teesside region, who have lobbied hard to see this investment in their region now being delivered by a Labour government. And the Mayor of the East Midlands can now forge the Trent Arc, linking Derby and Nottingham to create tens of thousands of new jobs and homes, connecting Infinity Park Investment Zone and the East Midlands Freeport, with sites including Ratcliffe-on-Soar Clean Energy and Advanced Manufacturing, and East Midlands Intermodal Park, home of Toyota in the region, along the Trent Arc corridor. Mr. Speaker, this funding is substantial, marking a 2.4 times real terms increase in spending on city-region connectivity, funding the priorities that matter to hard-working people living across the country. Mr. Speaker, these announcements were only made possible today because at the autumn budget in 2024, the Chancellor took the necessary action to reform the fiscal rules, to improve stability after years of chaos from the party opposite, and to unlock investment. This means that government can now provide greater investment in Britain's economic revival, as for the first time, the Treasury takes account of the value of financial assets and not just the costs of investment. This has enabled us to increase investment by over £113 billion more than the last Conservative government, whilst keeping debt on a sustainable path, only made possible by the credibility of our fiscal rules, which require day-to-day spending to be funded with revenue. It is more important than ever, Mr. Speaker, to have a robust fiscal framework. And I am pleased to note that the OBR confirmed at the spring statement that the government will meet its stability and investment rules 2 years ahead of schedule. In addition to her announcements today regarding transport for city region settlements, the Chancellor will set out further detail on this allocation of additional funding at next week's spending review. Moving on, Mr. Speaker, in January, the Chancellor announced a review of the Green Book, the government guidance on appraising options for investment. Since then, we have consulted extensively with stakeholders from across the country, considering potential problems with the Green Book guidance itself and how the guidance is being applied in practice. And can I pay thanks and tribute to many honourable members across the House for engaging on this important issue. We will publish the full conclusions of this review next week. It will mark, Mr. Speaker, a new approach to government decision-making, one which puts an end to siloed Whitehall thinking and takes account of the reinforcing economic effects of infrastructure, housing, skills and jobs to ensure investment takes place in every part of the country. These announcements, Mr. Speaker, reflect just a fraction of our plans to supercharge growth across the United Kingdom. We are focused on investing across all parts of the country to boost prosperity and deliver the change that the British people voted for at last year's election, and there is more to come. The spending review, which we will publish next week, will set out in further detail how an active government will continue to deliver growth, empowering all regions and nations of the UK to reach their full potential, and making working people across the country better off, no matter where they choose to live and work. And unlike the Conservative Party opposite, Mr. Speaker, who will tell you that they would have delivered on their false promises after 14 years of failing to do so, this Labour government in its first year in office is delivering. A country that people will see as being set up for success and that they can take part in. That is the change we promised, and that is the change this Labour government is delivering. And, Mr. Speaker, I commend the statement to the House.
I think you missed Coppell Railway Station out of your statement. Not to a rich and fuller.
Thank you. Thank you very much indeed, Mr. Speaker. And can I thank the Chief Secretary of the Treasury for his statement and early sight of it. And to start with an area of agreement, it's a shared ambition to enable all parts of this country to participate in the growth and future. Potential in the United Kingdom is everywhere, and it is right that the government seeks to unlock that potential with every means that it can. Indeed, that was one of the guiding principles of the 2019 to 24 Conservative administration with levelling up. And they always say, Mr. Speaker, that imitation is the sincerest form of flattery. Now, we know, Mr. Speaker, that the Chancellor has a reputation for copying. So I thought I would have a look at the statement made in 2023, which I'm sure the Chief Secretary has seen, of allocations for Network North allocations. And I thought I would compare them, Mr. Speaker, with today's government's announcements. These were the Conservative announcements. These were the Labour announcements. They can shout all they want, Mr. Speaker. Here we go. So let's go. 2023. Conservative promise for the West Midlands, £2.64 billion. I say to all the members opposite, the Chief Secretary is only making a promise. £2.4 billion for West Midlands, 2.1 for West Yorkshire, 2.1 today, 2.5 for Greater Manchester, 2.5 today, 1.45 in 2023, 1.5 today, 1.581 for Liverpool, 1.6 today, 1.84 for the North East, 1.8 today, 0.752 in 2023 for the West of England, 0.8 today, 978 million for the Tees Valley in 2023, 1 billion for Labour today. Mr. Speaker, the truth is, and I know the Chief Secretary is occasionally good with numbers, but does he not agree that essentially what he's announcing today is nothing more than a rounding error on the Conservative plans for 2023? In fact, Mr. Speaker, the only difference between 2023 and 2025 announcements is that in our announcement, we would have spelt the town of Rotherham correctly. Mr. Speaker, the truth is that the Chancellor will go around the country rewriting history as frequently as she writes her CV. But nobody believes in her £22 billion black hole. What they do believe is that this Chancellor is open to change. She's going to roll back the issues on winter fuel allowance. She's going to roll back her botched welfare reform. She's going to roll back changes on the two-child policy. To Labour backbenchers opposite, I would say, look at their front bench, their Treasury front bench. They haven't got a spine. If you've got an issue in your constituency and you think you want to stand up for your constituents, make a bid for this Chief Secretary, because he will back down and give you the money. That's what we know from Labour. And we also know, Mr. Speaker, that in the analysis that the government is taking about the Green Book, what they're looking to do is change the assessments of the cost-benefit analysis. So my question to the Chief Secretary is, I do have a number of questions. Will he publish the benefit-cost ratios for each of the projects he's announced today? Will he state whether these have been evaluated on the existing Green Book rules or on the new Green Book rules? And will he today give an indication about what those rules might be? Secondly, can he indicate, as the Labour government tries to decide whether their commitment is to 2% of GDP for defence, 2.5%, 3% or 3.5%, those numbers stretching into the next period of government, but also the investments today stretching into the next period of government, whoever's in government, can he confirm that it's this government's intentions that the investments today will be secure, what other changes are made on defence expenditures? Mr. Speaker, the Chief Secretary said that he's able to do this because they changed the rules. That's enabled 113 billion more of investment. That's not quite right, is it? Because you can only afford the additional investment, the government can only afford the additional investment if people are prepared to fund it. And there are two people who fund it. It is taxpayers or it is the bond market. So can the Chief Secretary advise whether he is going to look for additional funding from taxes or whether he is looking for additional borrowing if there is a shortfall? Mr. Speaker, the truth is, despite what the backbenchers say, that this Labour Treasury team is out of its depth.
It is addicted to tax increases. It is addicted to more borrowing. The Chief Secretary can republish as many press releases as he likes. But we know that because of the reckless mismanagement of the economy, come the autumn, this Labour government will be back for more.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I always enjoy our exchanges, and I'm pleased to see the Shadow Chief Secretary back in his place today. Can I also welcome the fact that he supports our plans and sees the good value in them? He asked me one particular question, and then I'll answer the rest in the round. On the Green Book details, all of the details will be published next week at the spending review, so we'll be able to share that with him in the House at that time. Mr. Speaker, the Shadow Chief Secretary also said that we were imitating the Conservative Party's promise to level up the country. I think the British people voted and gave a verdict on their success in delivering that at the last election. Their version of levelling up, Mr. Speaker, was a set of false promises, whereas this Labour government is delivering real change. And the Shadow Chief Secretary, rightly in his role, asked, how will you fund these announcements today? And I've explained in my statement to the House, Mr. Speaker, that it's because of the decisions the Chancellor took to amend the fiscal rules and to invest in Britain instead of continuing with decline that we've been able to do so. But the Shadow Chief Secretary and the Conservative Party haven't said what they would do differently. They were against the change in the fiscal rules. They were against our increasing taxes on the wealthiest people at the budget. They were against every single measure we've taken to be able to pay for the announcements today. So whether it's the Conservative Party, the Reform Party, or any other party, they need to recognise that their false promises has led to their decline, that their unfunded promises is disrespectful to the British people, that this Labour government promised change at the election, that we are delivering it. These are fully funded promises, unlike the unfunded promises of the party opposite, which posed a risk to the economy and a risk to the family finances. And the sooner they learn from their lessons, apologise to the British people and come forward with some serious proposals, the better for the debate in this House.
Chair of the Select Committee, Dame Meg Hillier.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I warmly welcome this investment in Britain and hope that the Treasury will be fully evaluating the impact of this vital transport infrastructure on growth in regions, which we know has always lagged, except for London and the South West. Mr. Speaker, it is important, though, that these figures are set now, fully funded, but we are aware, with all the global shocks that are around, that there could be additional costs on some of the raw materials being used, and any delay obviously adds costs. So will the Chief Secretary tell us what the plans are if costs do go higher? Is it going to be fully funded regardless, or will they have to go back to the drawing board if there are challenges?
I thank my honourable friend, the Chair of the Treasury Select Committee, who rightly alludes to the fact that the Chancellor's speech today is making the case for this government investing in every part of the country and making sure that growth is felt widely. She asked me about supply chain and costs for building infrastructure. She will know, as the House will know, that Britain has unfortunately become a country where most of our infrastructure projects go over time and over budget as a failure of poor industrial policy, poor infrastructure policy, and erratic decision-making over many, many years. Alongside the spending review, we will be publishing at a slightly later stage the infrastructure strategy, which will answer many of her questions in relation to government policy, recognising the problem that she's raised and the solutions that we'll be setting out to support the supply chain to be able to deliver for Britain.
Liberal Democrat spokesperson, Daisy Cooper.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We Liberal Democrats believe that when the economy is growing, every nation, every region and every person should feel and see the benefits. So we're pleased to see investment in public transport and public infrastructure. But I have to ask the Minister, where is the plan and the money for rural areas? The Minister will remember that at the budget, we Liberal Democrats did support and welcomed the government's changes to the fiscal rules that allowed for more productive, for borrowing and more productive investment. And we're delighted to see that one of the beneficiaries of the announcement today is the Metro link to Stockport, which is a testimony to the campaigning of Liberal Democrats who've been campaigning on this for far longer than the Mayor or the Combined Authority even existed. But from Shropshire to the southwest and from Cumbria to Cornwall, and from Norfolk to Newton Abbot, rural areas feel once again like they have been forgotten. So will the government bring forward a rural growth strategy? Could I also ask the Minister about Wales? Because we know that in Wales, HS2 and the Oxford-Cambridge line have been designated as England-Wales lines as opposed to England only. And I wonder if the Minister could explain to the people of Wales why it is that that has happened and why they are set to lose out on Barnet consequentials. Madam Deputy Speaker, there is one big missing piece of the puzzle. Many of us right-minded people want to see investment in infrastructure, but if we want to build stuff, we need skilled people to build it. So could I ask the Minister, will the government now fix the apprenticeship levy so it can be spent on skills and training? When will the government produce its skills strategy? Why has Skills England been set up as an executive agency of the DfE rather than having employers at its heart, as was promised? And why is the government scrapping the Level 7 apprenticeship when we know it supports social mobility, including into engineering? We welcome this investment into transport infrastructure, but that transport infrastructure will not build itself. We need the people skilled to do it.
Yeah. Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I'm pleased the Liberal Democrats welcome the announcements today. The announcement today is specifically about investment in city regions. The House will know that the Chancellor at the autumn budget in 2024 said that this Labour government is choosing investment over decline, which is why we are increasing investment into every part of the country. Announcements outside of city regions will come next week at the spending review, and to some of her broader questions on policy the week after at the infrastructure strategy. So with her permission, she'll have to bear with me, but there is good news coming because Labour is delivering.
Clive Betts.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Can I very much welcome the commitment to city regions. Our city regions have underperformed compared with the national average in terms of growth compared with continental cities. Could I just address the issue of South Yorkshire? I welcome the £1.5 billion to restore and renew our tram network and to improve our bus services. But I understand from the Mayor there are still discussions going on about a tram train project to link Stocksbridge in the north and Bayton and Woodhouse in my constituency in the south. That project will unlock sites for housing and employment growth. Will my right honourable friend agree now to give further consideration to discussions with the Mayor to get that extra funding for those growth projects unlocked?
I thank my honourable friend for his question. As he's alluded to, the Mayor for South Yorkshire has been given £1.5 billion. This is in line with our commitment to devolution and to city region mayors. So the fund is for the Mayor to decide how to spend. She has, as he alluded to, announced how some of this money will be allocated today in terms of the tram network, but it will be for the Mayor and the combined authority to decide how to use the balance of this funding for other projects in the region. But as always, I'm very happy to meet with him and with the Mayor to consider what options are available.
Martin Vickers.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I recognise the importance of assisting the city regions to boost the economy, but my Brigg-in-Immingham constituency basically covers the south bank of the Humber, which is a cluster of energy businesses in particular, of particular importance to the renewables sector. Could the Chief Secretary outline what resources are going to be made available for that area, in particular to support improved rail and connections, and also the A180, which gives access to the major port of Immingham?
The government recognises the strategic importance of his region to the UK economy. This will be reflected in the industrial strategy when it's published in the coming weeks, alongside our other plans. Importantly, to answer his specific question, announcements for funding outside of the city Transport for City Regions Fund being announced today will be made at the spending review next Wednesday.
Sharon Hodgson. Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. 20 years ago, when first standing for election, I was told to limit my ambitions with regard to campaigning to bring the Metro to Washington, but I persisted. And thanks to this Labour government and the new North East Mayor, my ambition is going to be realised. Does the Chief Secretary agree? Isn't that the difference that Labour and government can make? And promise made, promise delivered.
Can I thank my honourable friend and congratulate her for her decades of campaigning for this project. Could I also welcome her suggestion that this is a Labour government delivering the change it's promised the country. But can I add to that and say it's also the difference brilliant Labour MPs can make in their constituencies, campaigning for change for their constituents. Many congratulations to her, and I hope that she'll be able to cut the ribbon when the lines are up and running.
Harriet Cross.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. The Minister talks about regional growth, but in North East Scotland, we only see cost and decline under this Labour government. Take the oil and gas sector. Labour policy is costing almost 35,000 jobs by the end of this decade and £150 billion by 2050 in economic income. This UK-EU deal costing fishermen in Scotland £6 billion. The family farm tax, 2/3 of Scottish farmers will be impacted, 48% of farms halting their investment, which again hits our rural businesses who would be supplying them. Can the Minister name a single policy that this Labour government have introduced that actually benefits regional growth in North East Scotland?
I can reconfirm to the House, Mr Speaker, that this Labour government has delivered the largest real terms increase of funding for Scotland since devolution began. And might I just politely point her to the fact that the announcement today is about England, not Scotland, and further announcements on our commitment to delivering a new direction in Scotland will be coming next week in the spending review.
Andy MacDonald.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker, and I thank my right honourable friend for his statement. I very much welcome the Labour government's delivery of £1 billion of investment for the Tees Valley, and in particular the £60 million for the third platform at Middlesbrough Station in my constituency. The money to increase the station's capacity, which I hope will mean increasing the number of direct trains to London, will complement the recent modernisation works completed when I began campaigning for that in 2018 with the then Middlesbrough Mayor, Dave Budd. There are many priorities I think the money could be invested in, including the repair of the iconic Transporter Bridge, taking buses back into control, a la Andy Burnham, and electrification of our rail line. So can he set out the importance of combined authority mayors consulting with local authorities and local communities and making best use and best value of this award?
I thank my honourable friend, congratulate him for securing this investment in his constituency. The key difference, of course, being that when he started campaigning for it, it was under a Conservative government, and now under a Labour government, we are delivering. To his question on working with combined authority mayors, he is right to point out that the most effective mayors of combined authorities in England are those that work in partnership with their local members of parliament to make sure that every part of their combined authority is heard and involved in that decision making. And I would encourage the Mayor of Teesside to do that.
Tim Farron.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. People in Cumbria, North Yorkshire and Durham are deeply concerned to see no mention at all in the Chancellor's announcement of the A66 dualling project, which is vital to boosting the economy of the North and, even more importantly, to saving lives. Not a penny for the northern two-thirds of the northwest of England. So will he allay Cumbria's fears and commit now to the A66 upgrade?
If I might say so, Madam Deputy Speaker, I think the member's slightly confused. The statement today is about devolved transport funding to mayors for intra-city transport. He's asking me questions on the broader spending in the Department for Transport, which will be announced in the spending review next Wednesday.
Liam Byrne.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Can I congratulate my right honourable friend on an announcement that is going to make a huge difference to delivering the industrial strategy for this country, something the Select Committee will report on later this week. I want to particularly commend him, though, for the £2.4 billion for East Birmingham Tram. This is something I've campaigned on for 15 years now. It is crucial in connecting the impoverished part of East Birmingham to the extraordinary new growth opportunities created by High Speed 2. Could he just confirm today that this is only the first piece of the tram and that in the future we will finish the job?
Can I thank my right honourable friend and congratulate him as well for securing this investment into Birmingham. I recently visited part of this development and saw the enormous potential that will come for his constituents in connecting Birmingham city centre with the new sports quarter. And I'm delighted to see how much private investment this investment is unlocking for his constituency and for the city. These funding allocations have been devolved to mayors. The announcements today are the announcements that mayors wish to make about some of the early allocations of this funding. And it will be for mayors to decide how they wish to allocate the rest of their funding. I would encourage him to work with the Mayor of the West of England, and I will help in any way that I can to be able to extend this and get the full benefit for his constituents.
Sir Julian Lewis.
I know the Minister is drawing his parameters rather tightly today, but can he give us at least a hint of what impact the Treasury's consideration anticipates for the defence investments in the regions resulting from the recent Strategic Defence Review, given the closeness with which his department was involved in the formulation of that review?
I thank the Right Honourable Member for his question, recognising the significant increased investment in defence and security that this Labour government is making. He's asked for a hint. The only hint I can give him is that the answer will come next Wednesday at the spending review.
Bill Esterson.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Can I thank my right honourable friend for listening to Steve Rotherham, the Liverpool City Region Metro Mayor, and Liverpool City Region MPs who jointly asked him for pretty much what he's announced for the region in today's statement. And can I thank him also, congratulate him on recognising the value that transport investment has for communities and for growth. In 2027, the new fleet of electric buses will arrive in my constituency as part of the expansion into the borough of Sefton. Can he confirm that today's announcement covers the improvement in grid connections and infrastructure for charging that will be necessary to take advantage of the very welcome transition to electric buses?
Can I thank my honourable friend and congratulate him and colleagues from the Liverpool City region for securing £1.6 billion of transport investment today. As he will remember, he and I were on a visit together looking at some of the potential for this money to be spent not long ago, including a roundtable with local employers and workers at the Everton Stadium. And it was great to be able to see out of the window of the Mayor of the Liverpool City region's office to see the potential that this investment will unlock in terms of housing, jobs and great opportunities for people in that area. He asks me about how the rest of this money will be spent on what sounds like very sensible infrastructure upgrades, but as he will know, that is a decision for the Mayor of the Liverpool City region.
The Chief Secretary's announcement on regional growth omitted very largely the South West region beyond Bristol. Will he therefore ensure that next Wednesday there is at least a nod to the region in which both he and I have our constituencies? And will he ensure that the signal sent by this government practically on day one to the South West in Canning improvements to A303 is corrected? Will he ensure that there is a nod at least to the much needed Westbury bypass? And can we please have just a little bit of investment in the poor country cousin of the rail network in this country, which is the West of England line?
I thank the honourable member for his question. Of course, the announcement today is funding for combined authority mayors, which is why the West of England Combined Authority Mayor has received £2/3 of £1 billion of transport investment today for areas that are part of that boundary. We are, though, still committed to investing in each part and every part of Britain. The details of that will come out in the spending review next Wednesday. But I might also just remind him that the government has said to other parts of the country that if they can get together and agree a combined authority mayoralty, that we will continue to support them in the same way that we're supporting the existing mayors that we have in the UK. And it will be for local leaders in the region that he and I come from to decide how best to collaborate on these issues going forward.
John Trickett.
Well, it's more than 30 years since I was the leader of the Leeds and did the first proposal for a rapid transit system in that area in West Yorkshire. So I welcome today's announcement, though it's going to be a couple of years before the building starts. But during the 14 years of the Tory government, the average amount of money per head spent in London was 3 times larger than the amount of money spent per head on transport in Yorkshire. Of course, we want a successful capital city, but it's left the coalfield communities, which I now represent, really in difficulty with low investment, low productivity. Our salaries are only £12,500 per head, less than is received for the average in the north of London. Can the Minister please assure the House that we'll be looking again at funding the redevelopment, regeneration of coalfield communities in the near future?
Can I thank my honourable friend for his question and campaigning over many years. As the Chancellor set out today in her speech in relation to this funding for city regions, but also in our review of the Green Book, we are purposefully tilting funding towards the North and the Midlands after many, many years of losing out in those areas, with a tendency for money to come more into London and the South East. London and the South East are still important, but we recognise the historic injustice around the distribution of investment across the country, whether it's low ratios in the East Midlands, low funding in the South West, or indeed decades of being looked over in the North. That's why this announcement today is really important. And just to reassure him, I understand from the Mayor that work will begin on the projects announced today in 2028, with an ambition for first services to be available from the mid-2030s.
Tom Morrison.
Madam Deputy Speaker, I welcome the news about Metrolink coming to Stockport. This is an absolute tribute to all those residents, businesses and organisations that fought tirelessly to get this result. And can I also thank Councillor Mark Hunter, the former leader of Stockport Council and the former MP for Cheadle, who made it his life's work to get this result today. The Minister will know that we're expecting a train station in Cheadle very soon, which is adapted for the Metro, which will be adapted for the Metrolink. Can the Minister confirm that when Metrolink comes to Stockport, that it will come through Cheadle as well?
I thank the honourable member for his question. One of the many benefits of the funding announced today for city regions is the positive effect it will have for communities along these transport lines and for people that travel in and out of the city regions. This may be funding for transport in particular places, but I hope the benefit will be felt widely as he suggests. It will be for the Mayor to decide the programming of the delivery of these projects, but I think he makes a strong case for Cheadle, and I'm sure he'll be able to raise that with the Mayor in due course.
Joe White.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I just want to take this opportunity to welcome the Minister's statement that there's a shift from focusing funding on the easy-to-deliver areas in the London and the South, and a shift to the Midlands and the North, where in constituencies like mine are the left-behind areas. And I very much welcome that local mayors will be taking that decision. Now, £2 billion has been given to my mayor to invest in the East Midlands, and that's absolutely welcome. I welcome the Trent Arc proposal, but I also welcome the fact, the freedom that she's got to spend money in our area, such as in Bassetlaw, and I'm already in discussions with her about how that money can be best spent. My ask of the Minister is that that money can be used to help deliver STEP in Bassetlaw, which will change lives, create jobs, and put us on the energy-efficient agenda that we need for the future.
Chief Secretary.
Can I thank my honourable friend for her question and her vociferous campaigning to ensure that we are delivering on our promises to deliver investment to left-behind areas across the country after years of failed promises of levelling up from the Conservative Party opposite. It's right that we're finding that money and investing it in her community. One important point to make, though, is, of course, this is not the total amount of funding that the government is putting into her community. This is just transport funding devolved to the mayoral combined authority. There'll be further announcements in the coming weeks in relation to energy infrastructure, industrial policy, skills, housing and public services, where we will be able to show very, very clearly the difference that a Labour government is making, working in partnership with brilliant Labour MPs like herself, to deliver change that people voted for.
Sammy Wilson.
Deputy Speaker, the Minister is right in stating that modern growth relies on dynamic, interconnected regions, and that stronger transport links are vital for businesses to expand their markets for goods and services. But while he has announced £15.6 billion into improving transport links in other parts of the United Kingdom, his government today is spending £140 million on creating a border post in my constituency, which disrupts the transport links between Northern Ireland and the rest of the United Kingdom, costing businesses, slowing transport and indeed dissuading some businesses to even supply to Northern Ireland. What is he going to do to improve the transport links between Northern Ireland and Great Britain for logistics, which currently, because of the disruption, is slowing growth and causing businesses to fail?
The honourable member raises some important points which my colleagues from the Department for Transport will no doubt have heard, and I'm sure he's talking to them about the delivery of that particular project. I would just say that this government has put record investment into Northern Ireland. And we have reset the relationship, because under the last government, there wasn't even any conversation about Northern Ireland, whereas now I'm in frequent communications with the Northern Ireland Executive, who, might I say, of all of my colleagues that I've had to negotiate in the spending review, are the toughest people that I've had to speak with. And this Labour government will be delivering a good deal for Northern Ireland, as it will be for every nation and region of the country.
Anna Dixon.
Speaker, and I'd really like to thank the Chief Secretary and the Chancellor for delivering historic investment which will make a reality of West Yorkshire Tracy Brabin's plans for an integrated transport network, which is now going to be called the Weaver Network, I understand, to compete with the B Network on the other side of the Pennines. And I've been actively campaigning for that along with other West Yorkshire MPs. Can he confirm that it includes funding for a new bus station in Bradford? And also agree with me that these investments the government is making in the transport infrastructure in the north will improve connectivity for communities like those in the Shipley area and beyond, bringing social, environmental as well as economic benefit.
Can I congratulate my honourable friend for working so positively with the Mayor for West Yorkshire to secure this historic amount of investment into her community. She asked me specifically if there'll be new bus stations as part of the announcement, and I understand from Tracy Brabin, the Mayor of West Yorkshire, that there will be new bus stations at Bradford and Wakefield, as well as building out the West Yorkshire mass transit system. And I understand from these numbers there's still some more to spend, and I'm sure she'll be in touch with the Mayor in due course on that very matter.
Christine Jardine.
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Speaker. I'm disappointed that there are no SNP members here, because I actually have to take issue with who's here from the Scottish National Party? Nobody. I have to take issue with the Chief Secretary, because economic growth in any part of the United Kingdom doesn't just affect England, it affects all of the United Kingdom. And I'm sure if they were here, their constituents, like mine in Edinburgh West, would want to know what consequential implications does he anticipate for Scotland. Specifically, will there be Barnett consequentials for this investment today?
The honourable member is encouraging me to get ahead of this statement and answer questions about the spending review next week. All I can say for now is that this Labour government is investing in every nation and region of the country. We are delivering on the promise of change in Scotland, where we know we need a new direction. She rightly alludes to the fact of the absence of the SNP in the House today, and might I say the absence of SNP leadership in Holyrood. I think the election next year, we've got an example to show how two Labour governments can deliver real change for people in Scotland, which will be underpinned by the significant investment we'll be announcing next week in the spending review.
Emma Foodie.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I welcome the statement today from the Minister, his comments on the Green Book and, of course, the nearly £1.8 billion investment for the North East. We know that growth and opportunity should never just be for some areas, but it needs to be felt in every single part of the country, and this is a clear demonstration from this government that we understand that. Can I please ask the Minister whether this approach will also shape future infrastructure decisions, such as the road investment strategy, where projects such as the Moor Farm roundabout upgrade would have the potential to unleash growth in my Cramlington and Killingworth constituency?
Can I thank my honourable friend for championing jobs and livelihoods in her constituency and the region, and for welcoming the historic £1.8 billion of investment announced today for transport infrastructure. As she rightly alludes to, the announcement today is about transport infrastructure, but the government is doing much more to improve lives, wages and communities in every part of the country. And we'll be setting out further information in the coming weeks in relation to other types of infrastructure, but also how through the industrial strategy we're supporting skills and jobs and training opportunities for people so they can get better jobs and better pay. Noting, of course, that the transport funding announced today will serve one of the largest advanced manufacturing zones in the United Kingdom, which will be great news for her constituents, but also great news for the country.
Anne Davies.
Fawr, Madam Dirprwy Llyfarydd. Following on from the HS2, there is a new chapter in the Great Welsh Train Robbery. And you know where this is going, I'm sure. The East-West Railway project between Oxford and Cambridgeshire has been classified as an English and Wales project. I've lived in Wales all my life, and I've got to tell you, it's nowhere near the Welsh border. The last time I looked, neither of them were anywhere near Wales. Honestly, can the Minister or the Chief Secretary explain why the Treasury has made this farcical decision again to deny Wales millions of pounds in funding which we desperately need to transform our dilapidated, crumbling rail network?
I think the honourable member and I can agree on one important thing, which was the failed promises of the last Conservative government, who made decisions that undercut investment in Wales and deprioritised Wales. She will know that we have a brilliant group of Labour MPs now representing Wales who have been making their case strongly for this government to invest in Wales, and will be setting out further details of that investment at the spending review next week.
Ruth Cadbury.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. As Transport Committee Chair, this announcement is hugely welcome. These rail and mass transit schemes are going to link communities, generate growth and cut pollution and carbon emissions. But in the context of finishing the job that was mentioned earlier, can we hope that before too long there will be an announcement or a similar announcement about linking northern cities with the South East through the HS2 project that is currently stalled?
Can I thank my honourable friend for her excellent work as chair of the Transport Select Committee, which has shown on a cross-party basis why the announcements we make today are good for the economy, good for jobs, and good for constituencies across the United Kingdom. She's encouraging me to answer questions in relation to statements that we made next week. All I can say at this stage, I'm afraid, is there's not long to go.
Claire Young.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. The Chief Secretary says that the West of England funding will increase services between Bristol City Centre and Brabazon. I've been pressing ministers to extend the funding for half-hourly trains at Yate, which are currently due to end next year, and the service is also vital to provide a service to the new Charfield station, which is due to open in 2027. Both places are, of course, in the city region. So will this funding support those services or even improve them? Or is this more about the city than the region?
Can I thank the honourable member for her question, and I think welcoming the nearly £1 billion of investment in transport for the West of England, which we know is a thriving part of the country, that with the right investment in affordable housing, clean, renewable transport that works on time and is affordable for people to use, will be great for people living in her and my constituency, quite frankly, but also great for the country. One particular point just to note is that the funding announced today is capital investment, not day-to-day spending. There'll be further announcements in due course about issues that she's asked about in terms of bus subsidy or rail subsidy, which will be announced by the Department for Transport in the coming weeks. But we are absolutely committed to supporting funding within regional combined authorities. This is not about particular places. This is why we've given this money to mayors who will work with members of Parliament like myself and herself to make sure we're delivering for the West of England and delivering for the country.
Rachel Maskell.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I note that York didn't feature in the Chief Secretary's statement today. However, I also recognise the outstanding connectivity of York. However, today is about creating jobs, and adjacent to York Station, the York Central development will create 12,500 jobs, a gateway of the economy of the North. Will he ensure that there is proper investment in York Central to ensure that we unlock those jobs and give people in my city and the region the opportunities that they deserve?
I thank my honourable friend for welcoming this historic level of funding today in transport infrastructure. As she will know, this is a devolved pot of money to regional mayors to decide how to spend. And so I can't answer the question for her, but would encourage her to talk to the mayor about the opportunities in her constituency.
Mike Martin.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. And I thank the Chief Secretary for his statement today, giving money out to mayors to fix transport. There's nothing to disagree with there. Kent, which is, as he knows, the UK's strategic corridor to Europe, asked for a mayor recently and was rebuffed. So without a mayor, when will Kent get its money?
The government will be investing in every nation and region across the country. Further details will be published at the spending review next week. The announcements today are a particular investment in city regions with mayors, because we think that is an important driver for growth within those areas, but for also the wider regions in which they sit. I recognise the importance of his region to the country, and further announcements will be coming in due course.
Thank you, Madam
Deputy Speaker. I welcome the Minister's announcement today. It's quite wonderful to hear MPs buzzing with the investment that's going to be in their constituencies, especially after 14 years of the Tory neglect and the short-term insufficient funding that they used to give constituencies. Can the Minister reassure the House that when the spending review comes next week, that London will be recognised to the economic empowerment that it gives to the country, and that there'll be a different attitude to London spending that will help with infrastructure projects such as the DLR and Thamesmead extension?
Can I thank my honourable friend for her question and rightly recognising the importance of the capital city to our country, which has been at the centre of our engine of growth for many, many years. Also to allude to the fact that we've got a brilliant Labour Mayor in Sadiq Khan in London who strongly makes the case for investment in the capital. We will be making further announcements next week which will bolster and strengthen London and Sadiq's leadership in London to deliver for the whole country.
Gideon Amos.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. The Chief Secretary will know the benefits of the Compton-Wellington Station project would bring tens of thousands of people to the city metro region, Cardiff, Bristol, Exeter corridor, and thanks to a cost-benefit ratio of almost 4 to 1. Will he acknowledge the strength of the case for that project, as set out in the letter he received from his honourable friends for Weston-super-Mare, for North Somerset, for Exeter, from myself, and from the honourable member for Honiton and Sidmouth?
Can I thank the honourable member for his campaigning and welcoming the news of historic levels of investment into the west of England for transport today. The best use of this money is to make sure not just that we're delivering infrastructure within our combined authorities, but that it unlocks opportunities for broader spending decisions on intercity transport, heavy rail, road investments, new house building, industrial policy spending. The review of the Green Book has been looking at this. Further details will be published next week, but I'm very confident that we're going to be able to unlock opportunities for areas outside of the combined authorities, but making a stronger case for doing so because of the investment that we're making today.
Sarah Coombs.
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Speaker. Can I welcome this government's £2.5 billion investment into the West Midlands, which will allow our Mayor Richard Parker to make strategic decisions such as the extension of the tram, which is going to allow my constituents in West Brom to get to East Birmingham, which is